You know, let's get into it. We got about two more videos to go after this. Or maybe I'll just make it four. I don't know. Maybe one more.
Part of what makes cinema so brilliant across the board is the multitude of iconic antagonists it has served up over the decades. And while another element of delight is seeing an ominous, eyeball-popping WTF reveal of a villain, there have been occasions when those shock reveals were actually teased to audiences way earlier than they thought, or even where the seeds for a sinister swerve had been planted long before the film that we were watching. So with all that in mind, I'm Gareth, you are watching What Culture, and here are 10 movie villains secretly introduced way earlier than you realise. Number 10, Mysterio lurks in the background, Spider-Man Far From Home. The first time that Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, turns up in Spider-Man Far From Home, he's positioned as a superhero from an alternative Earth. Acting as a mentor to young Peter Parker, Beck manages to wangle himself custody of Tony Stark's swanky Edith tech, before the reveal is eventually made that Mysterio is a disgruntled former Stark employee who would embrace the dark side. Now, while that first appearance of Mysterio is as one of the good guys, attentive viewers may have managed to spot that this rogue actually makes his presence known earlier than we all thought. As Tom Holland's Peter does his best to try and enjoy his school vacation to Venice, Jake Gyllenhaal's Beck can be seen passing by old Webhead, casually keeping tabs on Parker while acting as nothing more than just a background face in a crowd. If you go back to watch those scenes of Peter Parker exploring some of the sights offered up by the famed Italian city, you can actually see Quentin Beck at several points, all before these two would formally meet. And obviously way before the Far From Home narrative showed Beck's true motivation, he had his eyes on Parker all along. Number 9, Kaiser Soze was revealed instantly, The Usual Suspects. The Usual Suspects is one of the very best pictures of the 90s, with this tense, taut thriller keeping audiences on the edge of their seats throughout its 160-minute runtime. Told in flashback fashion, this 1995 movie centers on a group of 5 criminals working for the mysterious Kaiser Soze. As revealed early on, only one of these criminals, Kevin Spacey's feeble verbal Kint, survived a bloody massacre that left his colleagues and a whole bunch of others dead at the behest of Kaiser. Brimming with plentiful twists, turns, and clever misdirection, the big question looming large over The Usual Suspects is just who exactly is Kaiser Soze? Of course, in brilliant fashion, the final few minutes of the film see it revealed that Verbal has actually been fooling everybody all along, and he is the mastermind behind all of what we've seen play out. But that huge shocker was actually there for all to see from the moment Kint is first introduced. Well, if you speak Turkish, that is. The name Kaiser Soze was inspired by the Turkish word Soze Bogmak. I think that's how you say it, which when translated into English reads drown in words, as in talks too much or to be too verbal. So rather than waiting for the end of the movie to find out who the villain of The Usual Suspects is, those fluent in Turkish realized who the big bad was as soon as Verbal Kint is introduced during the film's opening minutes. It was all there in the name. But yeah, if you didn't understand Turkish or speak Turkish, that was quite the shocking reveal, wasn't it, in The Usual Suspects? And speaking of those kind of big reveals, I want to know right now, what do you think is the most shocking reveal in movie history? Let me know in the comments right down below. Number 8, Valak's name had been seen throughout The Conjuring 2. The caveat here, of course, is that the varying forms of The Conjuring 2's main villain had been seen plenty throughout the movie, but the key to Valak is its name. In order to banish the demonic entity, Lorraine and Ed Warren must learn the name of Valak. Across the sequel, this beast torments the Warrens, inflicts its evil ways on a family in Essex, England, and even taunts Lorraine with the gnarly death of her husband. What The Conjuring 2 did quite brilliantly, though, is that it secretly introduced the Valak name way before the Warrens or audiences realised. And not just once, but the demon's name was right in front of our eyes at several points in the 2016 picture. First up, the letters V-A-L-A-K can be seen on a bookshelf next to Lorraine, after she's just snapped out of a horrific vision of Ed's demise. Then later, we see that Valak is spelt out on the Warrens' daughter Judy's bracelet, on a windowsill at the family's home, and on a table while they all have breakfast. It was everywhere! As mentioned, the varying visages of Valak are seen regularly across The Conjuring 2, but the key reveal that the Warrens are waiting to unlock the demon's name had been there all along. Number 7, Satan spotted watching Rogan and Baruchel.
Pick up the vibe, always lit, even outside. Smile on my face, don't kill my high. Nah, just go with the flow. Pick yourself up if the mood gets.
This is the end. 2013's This Is the End is a bonkers chuckle fest that had a host of famed actors playing versions of themselves as the literal apocalypse starts up during a party at James Franco's house. Initially anchored by Seth Rogen and Jay Baruchel playing, well, Seth Rogen and Jay Baruchel, the film goes from standard stoner comedy to standard stoner comedy complete with demons and the end of the world, as some of the cast find themselves turned to zombies or ascending to heaven. It is Rogen and Baruchel who are confronted with Satan himself during the closing moments of the movie. Well, the thing is, this form of Satan is actually first spotted just 4 minutes into the film. With Jay staying at Rogen's abode, the pair settle down to smoke some weed and play some video games. And there, hiding in plain sight, is a toy figure of the one and the same Satan design propped atop a shelf that sits above Rogen's TV. Is this merely an inanimate toy? Or is this really the Lord of Darkness keeping a watchful eye on Messrs. Rogen and Baruchel? Who knows, eh? Number 6, cybernetic leg Darth Maul had appeared years prior. Solo: A Star Wars Story. For those whose Star Wars experiences only involved the silver screen, it was a major jaw-dropper to see a cybernetically enhanced Darth Maul turn up during the closing moments of Solo: A Star Wars Story, revealing himself as the mastermind behind so much of what had been seen throughout Solo. Maul appeared via hologram tech to converse with Kira. But wasn't Darth Maul long dead, having been literally sliced in two by Obi-Wan Kenobi in The Phantom Menace? Why yes he was. Now, to be honest, even those familiar with what really happened with Maul after episode 1 were likely caught off guard by him turning up in Solo. Still, those people won't have been taken aback by the sight of a Darth Maul who had cybernetic legs. This version of Maul was first seen in the 4th season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars back in 2011, with it explained that the Sith had landed on the junk planet of Lothal Minor after his battle with Kenobi. There, the amnesiac Dathomirian Zabrak constructed himself a 6-legged piece of tech to help him get around, before his brother Savage Opress finds him, restores his memories, and gives him 2 robotic legs. What a guy. So while seeing Darth Maul alive and well in Solo: A Star Wars Story in 2018 was a massive shock for so many, this villain's survival had already been explored 7 years prior on the small screen. Oh, and if you've not watched Clone Wars yet and you really love yourself some Star Wars, then what are we doing? Go and treat yourself. And then while you're at it, go and treat yourself to What Culture Star Wars too. It's a good time. Speaking of good times, if you're having a good time watching this What Culture video right here, then click on that subscribe button right down below and you will get even more of these wonderful What Culture videos each and every day. Number 5, The Man in Black, Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers is clearly one of the worst movies in the Halloween franchise, yet this 1989 picture does at least have quite the literal explosive finale. That's something, I guess. After the Shape had spent the movie stalking his niece Jamie and good old Sam Loomis, the film's final act ends with Michael locked up by the Haddonfield Police Department. There, a mysterious man in black arrives and shoots up the HPD, killing numerous officers and breaking Myers out of jail. By the time Revenge comes to a close, the identity of the Man in Black is never revealed, and it's only towards the second half of 1995's follow-up, Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, that we find out that this villainous figure is Dr. Terence Wynn, a colleague of Loomis's. Wynn is seen having several conversations with Sam earlier in Curse before this reveal is made. As the Man in Black, Tezza is part of a cult using Michael Myers' DNA to create what's known as the Curse of Thorn. And where Terence Wynn is concerned, he was actually first shown in John Carpenter's original 1978 Halloween, having an uber-brief scene alongside Loomis, a scene that involved only a couple of lines of dialogue about Michael stealing a car. Number 4, the early crawler presence, The Descent.
This may be the last ad you see. With Pi Adblock, visit your favorite websites and watch ads disappear. However, you can also
Viewed very much as a classic of its time, well, depending on which version of the ending you watch, Neil Marshall's The Descent wowed the horror community when it was released back in 2005. Once the picture gets going, the crux of The Descent is that there's a group of friends trapped in a dark, dank cave, while vicious creatures stalk them at every turn. For The Descent, it doesn't amp up the crawler's element of dread until a fair way through the movie. Instead, the early goings establish the group dynamic and some of the fractured relationships of the 6 women who decide it was a smart idea to go spelunking. Silly move. Tensions boil over, the atmosphere is strained, and you start to wonder whether these 6 will ever make it out of the cave in one piece. And that's before the crawlers are even introduced. On the crawlers' front though, one of these humanoid beasties was slightly introduced under the audience's nose way before the creatures truly came to the fore. As we see our core group of protagonists first enter the cave setting and get adjusted to their new surroundings, a flick of a flashlight showcases a brief look at a crawler watching on from behind a rock, giving the eagle-eyed amongst us an idea of what to expect from this underground foray. Number 3, Eddie Brock gets referenced, Spider-Man. Despite talks of having the character involved in the picture, Eddie Brock does not make an appearance in Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film. However, Brock does get mentioned during that first outing for Tobey Maguire's Wall Crawler. About an hour or so into the movie, J.K. Simmons' J. Jonah Jameson berates his staff for the lack of Spider-Man photos coming across his desk. He's not happy. It's there that Jameson's second-in-command, Robbie Robertson, says how Eddie's been on it for weeks, but he can barely get a glimpse of him. That Eddie would of course be Eddie Brock, who is better known as longtime Spider-Man foe and occasional partner, Venom. Venom. I don't know what came over me there. Eddie and his nefarious alter ego would appear 2 movies down the line, with Topher Grace playing Brock in the third and final leg of Raimi's Spidey offerings, 2007's Spider-Man 3. In that third Raimi picture, it's fleetingly mentioned how Eddie has just started working at the Daily Bugle. By that rationale, maybe the future Venom was interning at the Bugle back during the day of 2002 Spider-Man? Yeah, maybe. Plans were at one point afoot for a Spider-Man 4 and possibly a 5th film, but the so-so response to that third picture meant those plans were axed in favour of Sony rebooting the Webhead property, with Andrew Garfield in the saddle for the Amazing Spider-Man. Number 2, The Bye-Bye Man says hello, hello, The Bye-Bye Man. In 2017's The Bye-Bye Man, Doug Jones' titular villain does not make an appearance until the second half of the movie. Well, that's if you believe the main narrative of the picture. You see, the nefarious Bye-Bye Man can be seen extremely briefly during the opening moments of the film, due to a good chunk of the Bye-Bye Man hammering home the don't say it, don't think it mantra of certain characters. The central rogue is teased without being outright mentioned, as supernatural chicanery begins to take place. However, an early scene where young Alice is taking a stroll through her uncle's new house actually gives audiences a look at the Bye-Bye Man way before you likely imagined. The camera never calls particular attention to it, but as Alice passes a bedroom mirror, the sinister figure of Jones' character can be glimpsed hiding in plain sight. Continuing the Bye-Bye Man's penchant for mirror scares, the film would incorporate something not entirely dissimilar later on too. And number 1, Captain America: Civil War's biggest revelation. Now, this wasn't the reveal of a villain, per se, but more the reveal of a huge revelation that would, in Tony Stark's eyes, position Bucky Barnes as the villain of Stark's story. Captain America Civil War's main premise is the Avengers being divided right down the middle, with Iron Man leading the charge for superhero registration, while Cap and his crew oppose this. But to really cause friction between these two factions, it's revealed that Bucky was the one responsible for killing Stark's parents. Uh-oh. During Civil War, we see Helmut Zemo push and prod for Mission Report December 16th, 1991 from the traumatized Barnes. Eventually, we would come to learn that this date was the day that the Winter Soldier killed Tony's mother and father in cold blood. In reality, we were all actually given a heads up on this back in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. There, we had a glimpse at the front page of a newspaper that read, "Howard and Maria Stark die in car accident." The date of this newspaper was December 17th, 1991, reporting on the tragedy the day after it happened. By getting access to the real details of these deaths and to an old Hydra base, Zemo had all of the ammunition and footage he needed to split the Avengers. And Anthony and Joe Russo had given us an early clue of this back in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. As soon as we heard Zemo mention his mission report shtick, it should have been crystal clear what was afoot.
Yeah. That's the end of it. Okay. What a nice video. We're gonna do one more.